final letter in the Aleph-bet, the 22nd letter in the Aleph-bet, is the letter Tav. The Tav can sound like a T. So it's Ta or T. It could also be like a Saf, and therefore it sounds like an S. So it could be Sa and So, etc., etc. That is the letter Tav, 22nd letter in the Aleph-bet. Now, what is the meaning of Tav? There's a design, and there is a gematria and a meaning. The design of the letter Tav is a Dalid and a Nun. A Dalid and a Nun together spells out the word Dan, the tribe of Dan. Dan means to judge. Dan was the last camp of the 4 camps of Israel. The 12 tribes were divided up into 4 camps, and the tribe of Dan was called Ma'asef L'chol HaMachanois. It was the last final camp. And it was famous for fulfilling the mitzvah of Hashavas Haveda, of returning lost objects. If somebody lost something, the last camp would pick it up and return it back to the first camp. The Talmud says, Ezehu Sheita, who is a fool, who loses kol ma shenoistim loy. He loses whatever is given to him. On a simple level means he's not responsible. On a spiritual level, the word ma represents the level of bittul, the level of self-nullification, the level of humility, which comes from the natural soul, the godly soul. When we have a godly soul and we are able to tap into it, we realize that we are nothing compared to God. And that should bring us to a level of bittul. A person who loses this bittul, a person who loses this humility, that person is truly a fool. And so the tribe of Dan, the letter Tav, the final letter brings him back, returns that humility to that individual. And therefore Dan was considered to be the feet of Israel. Even though feet on one hand is the lowest part of the body, yet through the feet we're able to bring the head to its destination. The head is ego, but ego can get to one's head and therefore block one's intellect and one's senses. Therefore we need the feet, which has no intellect, which is bittul, humility, to be able to bring the head to its true perfection. The word Dan also means law, to judge. A person that has bittul, a person that is truly humble, realizes before he does something, he must ask himself, what does the Shulchan Aruch, what does the code of Jewish law tell me to do? And that is what I will follow. So even though I have my own mind, and my own desires, my own will, I have the ability to become humble, to nullify my will for God's will and follow the laws of the Shulchan Aruch, the laws of the Jewish code of law. So that's the first interpretation of the design of the letter Tav. Then we have another interpretation, and that is the Tav, as we said earlier, is a Dalid and a Nun. Dalid can mean 2 things. It can mean, number 1, Dal, a poor person, and number 2, Dal can also mean Dilisani, to lift me up. And then you have the letter Nun. The Nun on one hand means Eina'ah. Eina'ah means deception. There are 2 types of deception. There's one type of deception that a person falls into the world, a world of deception. He begins to run after his lusts and temptations, after money, after honor and power, and he forgets the true purpose of this world. And after 120 years, when he comes to heaven, he has nothing. He is truly a Dalit, he is a Dal, he is a poor man. There's another type of Eina'ah, another type of deception, that a person realizes that God is concealed in the world, and therefore he searches for God. And when he finds God and begins to live his life according to God and Torah, then at the end of his life he is Dilisani, he was truly lifted up to the highest level possible. And that is the sin of the generation of Noach. We say Noach was a tzaddik b'doirei sav in his generation. Says Chassidus b'doir tav. Noach was a generation of the letter tav. They had the potential to reach the highest levels. On the contrary, however, they fell into the lowest levels because they turned the tav into a world of deception. And because of that, they had true dalus, they had true poverty, and because of that, the world was destroyed. A third interpretation of tav is that the tav is the final letter of the Aleph-bet, as the Rebbe explains, and therefore means completion and perfection. He went through all the letters of the Aleph-bet, and every letter has a meaning, and every letter has a theme, and every letter has a teaching. When you've gone through and mastered all 21 letters, and now you come to the final letter, the 22nd, now you reach true perfection. And that is the graphic design of the tav. It has 3 lines, as we said earlier. 1, 2, 3. The 3 lines represent one that is perfect in Torah study, one who is perfect in prayer, and one who is perfect in charity, in all 3 columns. However, you're not perfect until you are imperfect. And that is why the bottom of the tav has the letter Yud. The Yud, the smallest letter of the Aleph-bet, is also the letter that begins every letter of the Aleph-bet, represents humility, one who makes himself small. So when you come to the letter tav, if you truly want to be complete, tav for tamimus, completeness, then the final blow is humility. So when you have all of these 3 concepts, the perfection of Torah, the perfection of prayer, and the perfection of charity and good deeds, and then you have now one more level of perfection. You have one more level of perfection, and that is the perfection of humility, that you diminish yourself. You now have the gematria of 400, which is the gematria of tav, because you have perfected every aspect of reality. That is the ultimate level of perfection. And this answers a famous story that the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe of Chabad, when he was 4 or 5 years old, went to his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, and he began to cry. And the Zayder, the Tzemach Tzedek, said to him, "Why are you crying?" And the grandson responded and he said, my teacher taught me in the Torah, it states, Vayera Elav Hashem, that God revealed himself to Avraham. And I'm crying because why did God reveal himself to Avraham, but God does not reveal himself to me? And so Tzemach Tzedek responded, when a man of 99 years old is willing to undergo circumcision, that person is worthy that God should reveal himself to him. Now what is the Tzemach Tzedek telling him? 99 is one number less than perfection. 100 is perfection. Therefore, God tells Avraham, if you want to be perfect, at the age of 99 years old, the only way you could be perfect is by becoming imperfect, by diminishing yourself. Because if you think you're perfect, that is the greatest imperfection. That is the greatest flaw, arrogance. So therefore, when you reach 99 years old and now you want to be perfect, circumcise yourself. Add the letter Yud to the bottom of the tav, make yourself small, and now you will be able to reach the next level of perfection. Now you can reach the level of 400. So Shin was 300. It had 3 columns. The perfection of Torah and Avodah and Gemilas Chasadim. The perfection of Torah study, prayer, and good deeds. But if you truly want to be perfect, then you have to move on to the next letter, the final letter, which is the letter of Tav. And that is the ultimate perfection of 400, which comes about only through diminishing yourself, through bittul, through self-nullification. What is the gematria of 400? 400, we know from the Torah, was the amount of money Avraham Avinu spent to buy the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, which is the double cave where he buried his wife Sarah. And this double cave, by the way, Tav, could be 400, it could also be 4 by dropping the zeros. It alludes to the 4 partners that were buried in this cave. Who was buried there? Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah. These 4 great matriarchs and patriarchs were buried in this location. And 400 also alludes to 400 worlds of pleasure that a person will acquire in the world to come. Now, we said in the letter Shin that there's really 310 worlds of pleasure on the word Yisachar. So is it 310 or is there 400? And the Tzemach Tzedek explains that according to Chassidus, there's really 400, and it's not a contradiction, because 10 times 10 is 100. So the 310 is really, when you expand it to the fullest degree, it becomes 400. So Tuf alludes to the 400 worlds of pleasure that one will receive by fulfilling the entire Torah. What is the meaning of the word or the letter Tav? Tav, says the Gemara, stands for the word emes, truth. What is truth? Aleph, mem, taf. Truth is something which is true at the beginning and the middle and the end. Because even though the word emes concludes with the taf, when do you know it's true? Only in the end. At the beginning you're not sure. And therefore the tav is emes. Now, it says in Tehillim, Rosh Devarach Emes, the beginning of God's words are truth. What does that mean? If you look into the Aleph of Emes, that's the first word of the Ten Commandments. The Mem of Emes is the first letter of the Mishnah. It starts with the letter Mem, Me'i Masai. And the Taf is the first letter in the Talmud. So we have Emes, Aleph, Mem, Taf, alluding to the 3 beginnings of the written law through the Ten Commandments, the Mishnah, which is the letter Mem, and the Talmud, which begins with the letter Tav. The letter Tav also alludes to Techiyas HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead, because this is the final stage. After a Jew lives in the world, and after the days of creation, Mashiach will come very soon. He will bring peace to the entire world. He will then bring the ultimate perfection through Techiyas HaMesim, through the resurrection of the dead. I want to take it one step further. We spoke about the 22 letters of the Aleph-bet, but there are those who say that there are actually 27 letters of the Aleph-bet. And that is by counting the end letters, which is called the Mem and the Chaf and the Pei and the Tzadik and the Nun, Mansapach. So, in other words, the Tav equals 400. Then you go to the Chaf, the long Chaf is 500. The Mem is 600. The Nun is 700. The Pei is 800. And the Tzadik is 900. So now, if you add up these 27 letters, starting with Aleph, which is 1, and Beis, that's 2, and Shin, which is 300, and Tav, which is 400, and the 5 additional letters, how much does that equal up to? 1,775. What is 1,775? We are told that the first 5 years of a child, what does he do? He learns the Aleph-bet. Shana, which means year, equals 355. 355 times 5 is 1775. So for the first 5 years of a child, he learns the 27 letters of the Aleph-bet, and that brings him to Chaf Zayin, which is 27, which is Zach, purity. If you want to have purity in your life, one should learn the 27 letters of the Aleph-bet.